Hi, everyone. My name is Joanna, and I'm on the board of NAMI JC. And I'm really pleased to be here to introduce you to Margalea. Most of you know Margalea. I'm going to read from her book jacket here to introduce her. I love the nice description of you here. Margalea is a triumphant tortoise, having persisted in creative writing since age 5 and into her mid-60s. A retired hospital secretary, Warner has found renewed purpose in writing and speaking. She has published devotionals, poems, and essays to uplift and inspire. And she's spoken about mental health to medical students, church groups, and men and women in law enforcement. When she's not busy writing and speaking, she relaxes with her cat, Helen of Troy, which is a story I want to hear on the way home. You named that cat. She worships at First Mennonite Church of Iowa City and considers herself a great aunt to all of the children in the congregation. This book is her way of being a good steward of the story God gave her. So welcome to Margalea. She's going to talk to us today, and it's being recorded. And so this will be available on our YouTube channel. And I welcome you all here.
Thank you, Joanna. Greetings, friends, NAMI family. They say if you don't think there's mental illness in your family, you haven't been to a family reunion lately. And also greetings to friends I haven't made yet that might meet me on YouTube. My name is Margalea Warner. I'm honored to speak and share from my book to a gathering of my NAMI peers. NAMI has been a huge support and inspiration to me for over 4 decades. I served on the board of NAMI of Johnson County for 7 years until my father got sick and I had to be a caregiver to him. I took the peer-to-peer class, trained to be a peer-to-peer mentor, and later became a peer-to-peer mentor trainer. I give in our own voice presentations together with peers to medical students and community groups. I find it very meaningful to speak from the consumer's perspective to men and women in law enforcement who are training to be more compassionate and effective in a mental health crisis. I have spoken to NAMI family-to-family classes. I have participated in NAMI walks for decades and get quite competitive about being a lead fundraiser. The secret to that is being vulnerable about my own story and explaining why NAMI matters. It is not an exaggeration to say that NAMI helped save my life and certainly added to the quality of my life. I worked for university hospitals as a medical secretary for 35 years before I retired in September of 2020. I say retirement has been re-inspirement, giving me time to reach a lifelong goal of writing a book about my life. In choosing dance over despair, how I found keys to joy and recovery while living with serious mental illness, I share my journey of finding joy and resilience while living with mental health challenges. The book cover features a dancer with arms outstretched against a background of keys. As you can see here on display, I have shadow boxes of keys labeled for concepts of self-care and healthy habits that help me stay in recovery since 1995, so 30 years, one for each year without a suicide attempt. While I am not a ballerina, the way I lived in recovery inspired dance professor Eloy Barragan to choreograph a ballet entitled Unfinished that was performed at Hampshire Auditorium in November of 2022. Just like dancers put in hours of practice, I have practiced choosing dance over despair for years, and my book is an invitation for my readers to dance with me. Let me caution you, I will be speaking frankly about suicide and psychosis, and if you should feel triggered, I urge you to text or call 988, the mental health crisis line, or reach out to one of the peer support specialists here at our place. Let me read aloud some sections from Choosing Dance Over Despair to further draw you into my story. This memoir celebrates a faith journey of recovery from serious mental illness, using dance as a metaphor for rebuilding my life by choosing joy and gratitude, even at times that seem hopeless and overwhelming. My hope is that through my story, others will feel inspired to believe there's hope in living with mental illness, both for the individual and for their loved ones. To me, dance is any movement of body or spirit that renews joy, love, and gratitude. Now, starting further on in that chapter, the heaviness of my sigh matched the weight of the steel door that locked behind me with a loud clunk. I hadn't committed a crime, and I wasn't in jail. I was in a locked hospital psychiatric ward because I had a no-fault brain disorder called schizophrenia. The hospital wasn't a terrible place to be. Unlike the hellish insane asylums of a half a century ago, patients are treated with respect and dignity. This hospital was renowned for evidence-based medical treatment. There was a sunny day room where smoking wasn't allowed. Eating with other patients in the dining room helped things feel more normal. Except I did not want to be here again. For the past 15 years, I had been in and out of the hospital as if I were stuck in a revolving door. Seeing nursing staff walking around with a hefty set of keys on their belts made me envious. I wanted the key to my apartment where I lived with my pets. I wanted the key to my mailbox where I hoped an acceptance letter for my writing awaited. A lifelong non-driver, I didn't want car keys, but I wanted the key to my bicycle lock so I could go on a spin around the neighborhood. There had been other times when I was discharged from the hospital too soon, and I ended up sicker, but this time I was ready to take charge of my wellness. I wanted back the life these hospitalizations were interrupting. If only I could have looked beyond these locked doors into the future. What if I placed an imaginary bookmark on June 9th, 1995, and scribbled on the current page of my last life's book, Last Psychiatric Hospitalization? Then I let the angels turn the pages with their wing feathers until we land on November 11th, 2022, Hancher Auditorium, Iowa City, Iowa. This was a theater that had been destroyed in the floods of 2008 and was rebuilt on higher ground. And my life as of this night was also rebuilt on higher ground. I looked at the program I was holding, seeing a photo of a young dancer in a simple white dress, leaping with her arms outstretched as if she were flying. In gold letters, the words, "In Motion Dance Gala 2020T." I turned the pages of the program to Act 1, Dance 2, Unfinished. I would have been amazed by the words at the bottom of the page. Inspiration, Margalea Warner and Michael Judge. I held my breath with excitement as the spotlight shone on a young woman in a simple white dress walking across the stage, making slow, meditative Tai Chi movements. I heard the opening chords of Schubert's unfinished symphony. I marveled at huge shining keys above the dancer and the dancers who joined the single dancer on the stage. I witnessed a dance of courage, a dance of disturbing truth, a dance of strange beauty, a dance of vulnerable self-revealing, a dance of a tortoise persistence outdancing the hare, a dance that was interrupted, as were the lives it celebrated, a dance that, though unfinished, ended with hope. And in my book, there's a link. You can watch the ballet. Your first question about my story as told in the book might be, what happened? I was born in Arlington, Virginia, and was the well-loved child of older parents. I was a happy, creative child who loved storytelling and art. I have a distant memory of having a fever as a child when I heard growling, threatening sounds I would later call the voices. As young as fifth grade, I had thoughts of wishing I were dead. I thought dying would get me into Narnia, the country of the C.S. Lewis Chronicles. I had sad, lonely thoughts of suicide during the spring semester of my freshman year after alcohol abuse at sorority parties and the death of my beloved cat, Humi. I made a suicide attempt and was hospitalized for it. I was almost expelled. But my mom and my friends advocated for the college to be compassionate and not penalize me for having a broken brain. I went on to graduate with honors in 1981. After I graduated from college, I took a job as a secretary for a nonprofit called the National Jogging Association. On lunch hours, I would jog around the DC neighborhood. Despite a year on the job, with a good review and a raise, my thinking was distorted. I was depressed. I was challenged by strange voices. Right before leaving on a lunch hour run, I left a suicide note with the mailroom clerk, Tom, whom I felt close to. Triggered by bullying voices, I attempted to drown myself in the polluted Potomac River. But my body instinctively swam out and back safely. Tom came running out after me as I climbed out of the river and said, "What happened to you?" and walked me back to the office. When my boss learned what I had done, she insisted I see a psych professional. Reluctantly, I kept the appointment but refused treatment because I had no insight to needing care or medication. If my brain had been a piano, it would have badly needed piano tuning. I changed jobs because I didn't want to get the help my boss and coworkers pushed me to get. After a week on the new job, my symptoms got worse. That Labor Day weekend, I went on a road trip to Norfolk, Virginia, with my close friend Martha to visit our mutual friend Mary. That weekend, I was agitated, sleepless, and increasingly psychotic. Sunday night, my friend Martha took me to my mother's home and told my mother I was not myself. The next morning, my mother took me to our family doctor, and I was admitted to Suburban Hospital in Bethesda, Maryland, where I was hospitalized for over a month. I felt like I was locked out of my mind. Initially, the hospital doctor thought I had schizophrenia, a diagnosis I didn't understand or accept. I later learned a medical term called anosognosia, which means a person with mental illness is blocked in having insight into the reality of their illness. I only took medication initially because I was told if I didn't take it, I would be sent to a state hospital, a place I was told by other patients was a terrible place to be. Later, my diagnosis changed to bipolar, and I was put on mood stabilizers instead of antipsychotics. I moved from Washington, D.C. to Iowa City in August of 1984, pointed here by a mentor who encouraged me to explore the writer's workshop. Also, she felt I would have a somewhat safer community here in contrast to the sexual assault I survived in Washington, D.C. I took the Greyhound bus, aka the dog, across the Midwest for a visit in May of 84 and moved here in August 84. I wish I could say I left the mental illness behind me, but that was not the case. From fall of 84 until June of 95, I had at least 15 revolving door hospitalizations. During that time, my diagnosis was changed from bipolar to schizoaffective to paranoid schizophrenia. Here's a story of a turning point in that journey from chapter 16, The Key to the Quiet Room. This is about getting into good trouble. One morning, I woke up in the hospital with a bad headache. I had been up multiple times in the night to scribble in my notebook in the dim light about the visions I'd been having. But now, looking through the pages, I realized I could not read my own handwriting. Some of the meds I was on caused my handwriting to be shaky, but I blamed my own ineptitude. I ran my hand through my tangled hair. I heard the chattering voices of doctors coming down the hall to make rounds. "How did you sleep, Margaret?" Dr. A asked. Why did they always ask that when it was their fault they woke you up from what little sleep you got? I told him I didn't sleep because I was up in the night writing. Have you read the poem I asked the nurse to put in my chart? I think it has a clue to what will make me better. Margaret, Dr. A snapped, I'm a busy man. If I took time to read your psychotic scribblings, I wouldn't have time to write research patients. I only hope the scientific journal editors have the same opinion of Dr. A's writing as he had of mine. I raised my voice saying, this medicine you're giving me is poison. I can't think or feel anything when I take it. I'm not going to take it anymore. Dr. A's face and neck flushed red. His eyes seemed to bulge. You're the most non-compliant I've ever had the misfortune of being assigned. I'm seriously considering committing you to the state hospital. A scream came out of my mouth, and I watched it rise in a tall flame. I pulled on the drawer handle of my wooden dresser beside me. I yanked the whole thing off its grooves. With my bare hands, I pulled and twisted the cheap fiberboard wood of the drawer until it broke apart. The splinters scratched my hand, and I bled. The staff doctor psyched to the PNA's psychiatric nurse assistant, take this female to the QR, quiet room, and restrain her. Two strong men grabbed my arms and dragged me out of the room, down the hall, and into the QR. I bit one of them in the leg and got a mouthful of leg hair, which I spit out. The PNAs told me to change out of my street clothes and into a hospital gown. I was wearing a button-down shirt. I ripped it open without unbuttoning it, sending buttons flying like hail, bouncing across the concrete floor. There was more yanking and lifting me into a hard metal bed. Leather straps were buckled around my torso, arms, and lower legs. I heard the door slam shut and the clicking of a key. What was the point of locking the door when I was already trapped in these restraints, like a fly in a spider's web? I was afraid the restraining belts might squeeze the breath right out of me. I took a shallow breath. I could still breathe, and exhaled in a bellow, a roar. I was determined not to let the quiet room silence me. I had heard other patients screaming in seclusion, so the quiet room was a misnomer. It was the loud room, the rebel room. There was a fan in the ceiling above me. The voices loved to turn mechanical sounds into words that growl, words that lie, words that molest. Die, girl. We won't shut up until you shut your mouth forever. That doctor was right. You're never going to get better. High functioning, you can't even function well enough to write with legible handwriting. Writer, you're not a writer. You steal words from us and we can take them right back. You pretend to be sick to get attention. You aren't sick, but you sure are dying. You're not going to die in hospice either. No nurse will manage your pain. No family will be at your bedside as you die. You'll be surrounded by hate. I squirmed around in my restraints. I needed to pee. I was not going to use a bedpan. That mindful moment of discomfort turned the voices down. They vibrated instead of yelling. Don't you even try to ask God to rescue you. God doesn't exist. God has hated you since the day you were born. Wait a minute. If God doesn't exist, how can God hate me? I may be crazy, but I'm not stupid. What other lies could they be telling me? The voices gossipy attacked reminded me of the song, pick a little, talk a little, pick a little, talk a little, cheap, 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 pick a lot, tick a little more. I asked more questions. Could I really deserve to be hated by God or by anyone else? Even if I committed bloody murder, something I had just attempted to do to that hospital doctor, could I deserve the death penalty? I had acted out to get attention, but didn't I deserve some attention? I prayed a one-word prayer, help. That was a good enough prayer. I was a good enough person. I mean, a really, really good enough person. I based that belief not on anything I had accomplished so far, even though I had accomplished a lot, but on my value as a soul with breath. Okay. I was going to bust out of these restraints. I was going to open that locked door from the inside. I was going to reach out and grab a fistful of keys to get me out of all the doors that had tried to contain me. After what seemed like a century, but may have just been an hour, one of the PNAs named Eric opened the door. Eric said, the doctor said, it's time to take you out of restraints and seclusion. Will you promise me you're done acting out? Yes, I said, and I'm sorry I bit you in the leg. It didn't taste good. He chuckled. It always makes me feel better when somebody laughs at my jokes. Eric unbuckled the leather straps that tethered me. My arms felt like they were floating up all by themselves. I turned on my side and slowly sat up. Come on, Eric said. Let's get you out of here and back into proper clothes. I don't think you can wear that shirt you ripped off, though. No, I said, I'm going to need a new one. I'm going to need a lot of new things from this time out. That hour in the quiet room was one of the lowest lifetime bottom of a pit, a slimy pit. But what I learned there helped me climb out. My first fierce will to live gave me a foothold. I cried out for the help I needed. This brings to mind a cartoon. A man has fallen into a well, and Tommy has fallen into a well, and calls out, "Lassie, get help." Next frame, Lassie is pictured on her back on the therapist couch. Like Lassie, I found I was allowed on some really comfy therapist couch, provided I just asked them and my insurance company for their help. And my cries for help caused helpers to lower a rope to me, which I grabbed hold of with all my strength. What helped? I was without a psychiatric hospitalization for 29 years at the time I finished drafting my book. But in December of 2024, COVID flared my symptoms and I admitted myself to the hospital December 27th through March 18th, 2025. I'm proud of myself for having the insight and humility to admit myself to the hospital and for cooperating in treatment. Medicine adjustments and electric shock treatments restored me to my resilient self. What else helped? What helped me recover? Gradually, I got insight and committed to my own recovery, including vowing not to take my life. The advocacy of my family and friends played a key role in getting me to that mindset. Most of all, the grace of God carried me. I credit NAMI's support, education, and advocacy for making mental health recovery an attainable goal. I received mentoring from my peers, and I pay it forward to my peers. I benefited from computer training and job coaching from Goodwill Industries. I found support from a visiting counselor group and matured in my daily life skills. In May 2002, I was given the Emily Helms Award for facing my disability with character and a sense of humor. Another organization that has impacted my life for the better is the Compeer program. The word compeer means equal friend, and the Compeer program has a mission of matching persons in mental health recovery with trained community volunteers. Matches do things that friends do: meet for lunch or coffee, go to movies, run errands together, and whatever else appeals to the interests they have in common. Ordinary things that often persons with mental illness miss out on. I've been blessed by 3 such volunteers, and I've served on the board of Compeer. My friends in 12-step programs like Alcoholic and Narcotics Anonymous inspire me the way they mark anniversaries of abstinence with chips and medallions. My friend Sherry has annual parties on her sobriety anniversaries with a non-alcoholic drink contest. By June of 2012, I had been free of crises and hospitalizations for 17 years. So it was time for a party. And to mark each year of recovery, I asked friends to give me random keys: house keys, car keys, antique skeleton keys, and I named each one for concept and healthy habits that have helped me live in recovery. As of September 2025, I have 30 keys. That was the why behind these 2 shadow boxes full of keys. Would you like to know their names? Key 1, right meds and vitamins. For me, clozapine was the game-changing right medicine. Key 2, talking therapy, empathetic cognitive therapy. Key 3, family. My family loved me unconditionally. Key 4, Compeer program and all true friends. Key 5, let tears come. I grieved the passage of my parents and brother in a healthy way. Grief expressed is grief relieved. Key 6, the dignity of work. I was blessed to work as a medical secretary for 35 years, but some days I find dignity in just doing the dishes and making my bed. Key 7, say no to psychotic voices. Key 8, challenge distorted thinking. In NAMI support group, Hearing Voices Special Messages, we help each other with keys 7 and 8. Sometimes when we can't say no to our voices, we say, not now. Key 9, prayer. Key 10, choose life, risk the challenges of living instead of the challenges of death. Key 11, think outside the box. This, a friend of mine wanted to give me a key for my collection, but he didn't have any keys. So he reached into his pocket and pulled out a fingernail clipper. And he said, can you use this? And I said, well, the file could pick a lock in a pinch. So I named that key, think outside the box. Key 12, walking and exercise. Key 13, healthy eating. These two keys help fight the medication side effects of weight gain and prediabetes. Key 14, kitties and critters. Petting my cat, Helen of Toy, helps my brain produce love hormone oxytocin. Key 15, Tai Chi and the 70% principle. The 70% principle is to be gentle with yourself and not push body or spirit behind 70% of what is comfortable. Key 16, faith. Key 17, laughter. Key 18, hugs. Key 19, the key to the quiet room. I have the actual key to the old psychiatric hospital built in 1919. Key 20, this is my brave. After performance by that name where we share our brave stories. Key 21, therapeutic massage. Key 22, Paris. Instead of saying, I wish I were dead, I say, I wish I were in Paris. Key 23, music. Key 24, ask for what you need. Key 25, gratitude. Key 26, persistence. Key 27, dancing in the dark. Key 28, Sabbath, making mindful rest a habit. Key 29, the gift of story. Key 30, breath. This key reflects gratitude for being brought back to life and breath when I choked on a chicken breast in the hospital dining room. Breath also expresses the concept of giving myself permission to breathe. Reading from key chapter 22, the why behind my keys. I tell my story to pay forward the hope I got from my peers in mental health recovery. I tell my story to encourage a young, unsheltered man named Nate, newly diagnosed with schizophrenia, that recovery is possible. I tell my story to help families recognize they didn't cause the no-fault brain disease of mental illness in their family members. I tell my story because I believe everyone is on a recovery journey of some kind. I want to walk beside the whole world in mending of our hearts and minds. Finally, I want to talk about a wise, life-changing decision I made in May of 2025 to move into Walden Place Senior Independent Living. At Walden Place, I've had a balance of solitude in my one-bedroom apartment and fellowship time with my fellow residents. I love eating in the dining room, and I joke that I might write a cookbook called The Joy of Not Cooking and The Joy of Not Doing the Dishes. Every day there are 4 or 5 activities to join in, including daily exercise group, arts and crafts, trips on the Walden Place bus for shopping, movies, lunches, and bowling. We've had all kinds of holiday cheer. I'm so much less isolated and feel safer and happier. When I did have a fall and couldn't get up, I was grateful to have a medical alert button that I used to call first responders. I'm so inspired by my experience at Walden Place that I'm writing a sequel memoir called Finding My Tribe at 65, The Power of Community in Enhancing Senior Mental Health. I hope that if you read my first book, you'll want to follow the story into the second book, or that if you read the second book first, you'll want to hear how the journey began. With that, I'm open for questions.
Thank you so much, Margalea.
Wow.
Any questions? I do have to hear why Helen of Troy is named Helen of Troy.
It's actually Helen of Troy. When I adopted her 10 years ago, she came with a toy, a very noisy toy, and she got the zoomies at night and would play with her toy and would keep me up. So she became Helen of Troy, T-O-Y. And of course, she is a queen.
At what time were you really convinced that your recovery was possible?
Golly. It might have been when I met June Judge and heard her family story. Yeah.
You're fortunate to have a loving family.
Yes, I am.
Many families do not understand and have trouble with that.
I think families do the best they can, but they do better when they have NAMI family-to-family classes and
Absolutely.
come to understand that they didn't cause the mental illness,
Right.
that the person with the illness didn't ask for the illness, and just that they be kind. And families are not treated by kindness from providers either.
It's true.
Thank you very much for sharing your story. That was absolutely amazing and insightful. My question is, do you feel like there was any significant turning point where you were able to truly embrace and accept help and treatment where it really started to help?
Yeah. Well, the story I read from the quiet room was one of my turning points.
So that was like so traumatic, right? That you.
Yeah, it took a while, anosognosia, the blocking and understanding that you have an illness. It took a while to overcome anosognosia, but
that was the moment that it reached its like pinnacle.
Yeah, there's something.
Like,
the voices are lying to me. This isn't what God meant me, who God meant me to be. God does love me.
Well, we are so glad that you found your way on that journey and were able to share it with us.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you for sharing with us today. Is there, I don't know, maybe this is for everybody or you or me or whoever wants to share, but I was kind of thinking about the implications with like faith, and I was kind of wondering if you wanted to like say anything about kind of you know, there's a lot of comprehension of like the biomedical aspect to like mental health challenges, but I don't know if you had anything you wanted to mention about like maybe more of the soul spirit dimension to, and like relational dimension to.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I believe that faith plays a role in healing, just like people heal from other physical illnesses. And I think faith communities can be educated to be more supportive. And I've been fortunate to have a church family at First Mennonite Church of Iowa City that was supportive of me. And also with my mental health hospitalization earlier this year, I was blessed to have already chosen 2 of my friends from First Mennonite to be power of attorney for healthcare and financial. I can't stress the importance of that enough. As a senior, I have lost both my parents and my half brother. I have a few cousins and 1 aunt, but I'm what you would call a solo ager. And I can't emphasize the importance of community enough. And my friends had been nudging me to find safer, less isolated housing. And because June Judge, who many of you probably know, the Judge family, she lived at Walden Place for 6 years. And so she was part of the reason I chose to move there. But unfortunately, she had a bad fall and had to move to Wisconsin to be with her daughter, Kate. Yeah.
Any other questions?
How did the book come about? You shared how writing was always very important to you. Even from a young age, but to come to the point where you felt that you could write not simply for yourself through journaling and how positive journaling can be for mental health, but this is a story I can share with someone else in published form. How did that process come about for you?
I contracted with a woman named Marcy Pusey, who is a story coach / editor that helped me self-publish the book. And I went on writers' retreats in Maryland and in California. And I'm part of a group called the Red Bud Writers Guild, where women Christian writers support one another mutually. It was kind of an honor to be admitted into it. I had to create a writer's web page, and I do have one. It's called margalea.com, margalea.com. You can find a video of the ballet there. You can read other creative writing that I've had published.
Well, thank you for taking that step, because I was very encouraged by you sharing the story, excerpts from your book.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's that idea that how do I know what I think until I see what I say? Just trying to articulate feelings on paper is always so helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Margalea, so much.